you gonna call?
Ray Parker Jr., the theme from Ghostbusters. Tributes being paid to the film director Ivan Reitman, who's died at the age of 75 after his family fled communist oppression in post-war Czechoslovakia. He grew up in Canada. He trained in filmmaking. His big break came when he produced the comedy National Lampoon's Animal House in the late 70s, but his biggest success, undoubtedly Ghostbusters, the original back in the mid-1980s. But he made other films as well, Kindergarten Cop, Twins. Film critic Van Connor joining us on the show. It was actually at a film screening with Ivan just a few months ago. Van, afternoon.
Afternoon, Paul. Yeah, he came and introduced our screening of Ghostbusters Afterlife, along with the film's director, his son, Jason Reitman, who he's produced films for in his later years as well.
Yeah, and he produced Ghostbusters Afterlife as well, did Ivan. So he was there, but he made some top comedies back in the day.
He did. As I say, he started out actually as a producer for David. He was a Canadian movie producer, so he started out like producing Cronenberg movies. Like David Cronenberg, one of the greatest minds of contemporary horror, very very Canadian, and started out with Ivan Reitman producing his films like Rabid and Shivers, and then he produced, as you say, Animal House, and that sort of I think gave him a taste for comedy. He had a previous collaboration in TV with a then very young Dan Aykroyd, who I think was serving as an announcer at the time, and he started to go into comedies. He formed a partnership with Bill Murray over several films as well, and with Harold Ramis, and this would all pool into the Ghostbusters franchise, and then we would see other iterations like this down the line of things like Evolution, where he sort of tried to bring back that formula with a slight twist, and even got Dan Aykroyd along for the ride, tried to do the same thing again with a new generation of talent. He is, I think, one of the mainstays of comedy. He's one of the most iconic comedy directors of the last century. He's the man that showed us that Arnie could do comedy, something that once upon a time was unthinkable.
Yeah, well, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, but National Lampoon's Animal House, that sort of that was a film that was genre-breaking in a way. It started a series of films of that type, didn't it?
It did, and we still feel the effects of the influence of Animal House to this day. I mean, you only need to look at the legacy today of something like the American Pie series, and you see, exactly what Animal House has led to. We've seen a bit of a tapering off of the gross-out teen comedy in recent years. Understandably, it's somewhat antiquated and problematic in today's climate, but Animal House is the one. If you famously go and check out the Simpsons episode Homer Goes to College, which I think might be one of the greatest works of comedy ever constructed by man, and yet it is one great big riff on National Lampoon's Animal House and Revenge of the Nerds, but it is always about Animal House. It always comes back to everything set up by Animal House.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody has different films as their favourites. Dave is one of those films that he directed in the early 90s with it's great, with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver. Doesn't get as much attention as it should have done, but it was a great film.
I'm with you on that. I think Dave was 1992, I think. So he's the lookalike for the president during a crisis. And Sigourney Weaver, I think, was the first lady. And I really enjoyed Dave. Had a great moment with I once caught a fish this big gag. But Ivan Reitman, he's always been a curious one. Like, he's tapered off he had tapered off directing several years ago now. I think you look at the movies he was making towards the end, it was things like My Super Ex-Girlfriend and things like that. They were very rote comedies. He had become more of a producer and more of a mentor figure in his older years, as you see through his relationship with his son, as Jason became more and more the prolific director. And you look at things like Juno and Up in the Air, Ghostbusters Afterlife obviously being the most recent success story. He had this very obvious view of placing Jason as his successor, and it's the influence when you see it in Ghostbusters Afterlife really is a like father like son. It's a very loving and very very touching, very heartfelt homage to his father's very very iconic and, as we say, most recognizable work.
Yeah, Van, good to have you on the show. Film critic Van Connor, talking about the life and career of Ivan Reitman, the film director who's died at the age of 75.